Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Lynette. Today we're going to talk about consistency. And in this reference of consistency, I am talking about remaining happy consistently. Even when you're out there in the world and you're surrounded by people, you're surrounded by opinions, you're surrounded by experiences. It's one thing to be at home where you can gather your thoughts by meditating or praying. But when you are thrust out into the world and you're trying to maintain either a positive attitude or a consistently happy attitude, it's difficult because there's so many personalities and so many things that are thrown at you all the time. I like to use myself as an example. And this just happened the other day. I was going to a gathering, a party, and I was feeling really, really good before that. And not to say anything happened that made me not feel good, but just knowing that there was going to be so many personalities, so many scenarios, so many opinions, so many people telling me, do this, do that, have this ready, do that, be ready for this, be ready for that. It was like I felt myself overwhelmed even before I got there. And when you get there, then you're on. You can't be in your own head thinking about trying to keep on track with your positive attitude, your positive thoughts, your consistent happiness. So that was my challenge, and it made me really realize how difficult it is. Well, I should say how easy it is to be home in your own little world, your own little bubble, and maintain the emotional stability that you want to achieve or even the positivity that you want to achieve. Sometimes I'll be in extremely positive mode, and which I try to maintain. But one phone call from someone who's a little negative or has an issue going on or a problem or whatever, and it changes the whole scenario. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems people who are experiencing something, a problem or whatever, they almost want you to be in that same mode as them. I finally had to tell somebody that I try to maintain a positive attitude, and it's very difficult when this person calls me and pulls me down and expects me to join in on that lower level with them. And it's not that I don't want to be there for someone who's having a problem or who's having trouble, if it's legitimate. But if they're chronic complainers, then you almost have to put them in a category where they understand. Like I had to explain to this person, look, I spend all week trying to be positive. That's where I'm coming from. That's what I'm trying to achieve and trying to put out into the universe, actually. And I can't be pulled down and then have to lift myself up. It's constant back and forth, back and forth. I remember years ago, it seems to me, looking back, that friends would call me when they had problems. And I used to always listen because I had a girlfriend that gave me the same courtesy. She would listen to me for hours, go on about something that was bothering me. So I try to extend that same courtesy to others, to be there, to be available, to listen to them. And then I realized I was getting calls from people just to listen to their problems because they knew I would. And it got to be where finally I said, wait a minute, I need to put the brakes on. This can't be happening over and over. So now I've more or less put my foot down. I refuse to be just a sounding board for someone to vent, to make themselves feel better, even at the tiniest situation that's bothering them. And again, I stress not to be confused with somebody needing you. Sometimes a friend or a loved one, whoever, they really need someone to talk to. So you have to kind of balance that out. You kind of have to figure the difference between people using you in that way just to vent their problems because they know you'll listen, and those that really do need you, that really need someone to talk to, that are desperate, because we don't want to abandon people who are having a really tough time and maybe need a kind word or just basically an ear to listen to them. So you have to weigh out that difference. The big picture is in figuring out how to remain consistent, consistently happy, consistently positive in this world when there's so many personalities, so much going on, is to not buy into the negative situations that are going on, the negative things people say. You hear them, put them in a secret compartment within yourself and let it go until you have time to be home and meditate. I talk to God. I say, God, is there anything you want to talk to me about? And which is a form of meditation as well. The difference between prayer and meditation is prayer is pretty much you doing the talking and asking for what you want. And meditation is listening for the answer. And I noticed that when I did this just the other night, it's like the situation unfolded into a way that I never would have thought of. And it all made sense, and it took a lot of the stress off of me. Because there was times that I would try to bury things that I didn't like that made me feel uncomfortable, and I would bury it oftentimes when I would be laying in bed instead of turning off the television and getting a good night's sleep, or praying or meditating and just listening, just quieting myself. I would watch shows instead, and that would preoccupy my mind. But it wouldn't help in the long term because I'd wake up and the situation was still there. So what I'm getting at is that we've done a lot of work to be happy, to be positive in a world that is wonderful, but there is good and bad going on, and there's stress, and we all have problems. Situations come up. And when the situations come up and we don't clearly know how to handle them, try to hold it. In other words, when you're out in this world, things are being thrown at you, personalities are coming at you, unpleasant scenarios are coming at you, that you keep it in your secret compartment within yourself. And when you get home, when you have a chance to have some quiet time, go to God, go to meditation, go to prayer. And that's where you'll get your answer. That's where you'll get your peace. So basically, to sum this up, when we're walking in the walk that we want to achieve, and that's to be our best self, to be our happiest, to be positive, to achieve career goals, it's wonderful to be that way, and it's easier to maintain that way when you're home, when you're someplace by yourself, when you have time to think. In today's world, we go to work, we go out with friends, we're getting a lot of jibber-jabber, a lot of situations, a lot of opinions. And so just hold it till you get time to be quiet and get the answers. And they're usually in a form that you would have never thought of. And it's so easy to dissect it and put it out and level it out and then walk on. And there's going to be other things. You know, it's not a one and done type of situation. It's a life. I mean, so long as you're alive, there's good, wonderful. But then there's also things that are thrown at you. To maintain that consistency, that consistent walk, that consistency to be your best self, the consistency to be positive, the consistency to be happy. You will find the answers when you have time to be quiet, not when they're masked with either substances or television or whatever, just quieting yourself and meditating and praying and looking to God and getting the answer. And it's interesting that the answer is so simple and brings so much peace. And from there, once you have that, you have a good night's sleep. You can wake up feeling good. You can start your day one foot in front of the other, being your best self, being that person that you're striving to be, happy, positive, enjoying life. And then when something else comes at you, just store it till you get home, till you get to a place where you can be quiet, because you will get the answer. And you're not alone. We all have things thrown at us. We all have people say things to us that are zings. We all have opinions thrown at us. We all have situations thrown at us. But you don't need to carry that burden. Just hang on to it if you need to until you have quiet time. And then you will find the peace. You will walk in the peace. And I think the more often you do that, the more of a way of life it will become. So yes, it is about finding consistency in a world where things are thrown at us. And I don't mean that the situations that are unpleasant are more frequent than the good ones. However, we don't seem to dwell or mind when good things are happening, when happy things are happening. It seems the ones that are unpleasant are the ones that really get our attention, that sometimes we have trouble letting go of. So as you practice this and walk forward in it, and it becomes a way of life, bring it to the altar issue, if you will, and waiting for that quiet, peaceful answer. And when you practice this more and more regularly, I think the quicker it will come. I think the easier it will come. But just know there is the answer out there. And you just have to be quiet enough to hear it. Because you don't want a situation to come up where something affects you or somebody says something that affects you and you act on it right away. Because sometimes when there's a situation or somebody says something, when you have time to give it some thought, some peace, some quiet, and really meditate on it, you'll get a whole different meaning to the same scenario. And you'll say, wow, I am so glad I didn't act on that when I did. So when you're in a situation, when something bothers you, when a situation comes up, don't act on it right away. Wait till you're sure about your actions, and wait till you're sure that you're reacting appropriately to the situation that's going on, and that you didn't misunderstand it, or you were having a weak moment or whatever. Just make sure that you're reacting appropriately to the same scenario. And in doing so, sometimes it takes a little bit of time away from the situation. And it's funny how it brings on a whole new life at times. I can't tell you how many times I think, wow, am I glad I didn't react in the way that I wanted to. Because when I had time to think about it, it wasn't as bad or as unintentional as I thought it was. And when you do that, it brings on a whole new confidence to you as well. Not only to you, but to the people around you. It shows them that you're not a quick reactor, that you're not easily offended, that you're logical in your thinking, and your actions are valid and real. With that being said, I will talk to you next week, and I thank you for listening. Until then, bye-bye.